It's May 1st, so today we're going to talk about rent collection, payment plans, and what you as a landlord can do to help your tenants during COVID-19. What's going on, everybody? This is Andrew. As the pandemic continues, landlords are again concerned about collecting their rents for May. Ontario saw over 400,000 people lose their jobs in the month of March alone, and with that number rising, anyone should be able to see that financial difficulties are on the way. I want to share some of the things that we've been doing to make sure our tenants are in the best financial position they can be, because if they're in a good position, landlords are more likely to get their rent. Last month, by calling our tenants who hadn't paid rent, we found that 22% of them were unaware of subsidies available to them. All we did was direct them to the proper resources and alternative ways to pay their rent, and we were able to reduce the deficiencies by about 30%. So here's some things that you should start with if you want to do the same. The first thing you want to direct your tenants to is obviously the CERB, which is the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. As this is now the second rent cycle affected by the pandemic, the government has been refining their assistive programs to help keep people fed and in their homes. So by now, any of your tenants financially affected by the pandemic should be collecting some form of government assistance, be it either the CERB or EI. But surprisingly, not everyone is. Last month, the CERB had a really tight structure that not everybody could qualify for. Many people with reduced working hours didn't qualify as they were still technically employed, but the program had recently been expanded to include part-time workers who were earning up to $1,000 per month. And there are more talks about expanding the program even further. So if your tenants don't know this, you should tell them. It'll be a help to them and it'll be a help to you. The next thing you can do was actually something that came suggested from one of our tenants. He basically asked if he could pay a small portion of his rent via credit card because he had some special 2 to 3% credit balance transfer option. A lot of landlords might not have the means to accept credit cards, but you can consider easy to use products such as Square, which allows you to charge credit cards. And yes, there is a small percentage fee, but it's better than receiving nothing or having to wait and missing out on some of those bill payments. Another interesting resource that we only recently discovered was rent banks. I had no idea these things existed, but if your tenant is behind on rent and potentially facing an eviction, they may be able to qualify for interest-free loans to catch them up. It's something you should check out as it's generally offered locally. Each rent bank has slightly different qualifying criteria, so try a quick Google search and see what options are available to you in your area. If your tenants qualify, organizations like the Good Shepherd may be able to help cover 1 month's rent and help keep the tenants in the home. But again, these organizations vary between city to city, so you really want to check on what organizations there are that can help. There's a few more things coming down the pipeline too. If you are in the student rental market, you want to be monitoring the emergency student benefit, which hopefully comes out soon. This benefit is estimated to be giving around $1,250 to post-secondary students meeting the terms and criteria. So if you have any student tenants looking to back out of their lease because of financial reasons, tell them to stay up to date with this program and hang on because that should be getting released soon, hopefully. Now, just as a quick footnote on the student rental leases, with universities and colleges switching to online programs as the result of the pandemic, there have been quite a few students looking to break their lease. It's important to explain to them that the lease agreement has nothing to do with the university's campus being open or closed. And from there, you can have at least a good footing and try to work something out. Talk to each other and see what you can do. While you're putting all these things into motion, try to establish a timeline. Working together can be done in a handshake deal, but writing things out can bring a lot of clarity to what each of you are contributing. So if you want to make a payment plan and want to give your tenants some money off, make sure not to word it as a rent discount. That language can be easily misunderstood and taken as a permanent reduction in the rent. The way we word it is as a rent credit, which we make sure is very clear as to which months these apply to, and we give it as we move forward. In addition, if you have your tenant completing any work to offset the rent or are willing to pay a percentage of the rent over time, make sure these dates are clearly documented in your agreement and the work is clearly documented as well. The agreement doesn't have to be complicated, but should be easy to understand. A 2-page agreement will probably suffice and won't intimidate your tenant from signing it. But what if you're trying to do all this and your tenants are still falling behind and nothing seems to help? The landlord and tenant board said that they will be hosting some hearings on the phone, but since this whole thing started, we only had 1 hearing and the verdict hasn't come back yet and there's no estimated time for it. But you should still file all legal documents with the LTB. Don't think for a moment that there's no point in filing. There's going to be a lineup of hearings when they finally figure out a system to do, and you want to be one of the first in line when that happens. One of the greatest contributors to the opposition of working together that I keep hearing about is rent strike organizations. They are apparently trying to rally tenants to not only keep their rent money, but to also keep that emergency response benefit of $2,000 a month. So unfortunately, we have a few tenants who are just taking advantage of the situation and not even returning our calls. No effort to pay, no negotiating, just ignoring us and writing things out. I really don't get why these organizations are encouraging people to do the wrong thing. It doesn't incite cooperation, but instead incites conflict. They should be taking the position of working together rather than stick it to the man. That's all I have for you guys today. We've been managing to solve a whole array of problems, mostly by talking and negotiating with our tenants. If you have any questions about how to handle a specific situation, feel free to message me or drop a question in the comments below. As always, if you're new to my channel and want to learn about landlording or other real estate related topics, hit the subscribe button and start following us on our socials. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one.